I'm Layla, and I'm going to tell you about how I met my husband, whom I had never met before. I was born and nurtured in a cult with a relatively limited number of followers worldwide. No, it is not what you think. We don't live on a farm or in a remote location like some strange tribe. We live in cities, in normal families, in normal houses or apartments, and in normal schools. But there are two rules that we must never breach. One option we have is attending the annual gathering organized by the cult leaders. Second, and most importantly, we should never marry someone who is not from our community. I didn't give it much thought when I was younger. I never paid attention to it because I assumed it wouldn't happen anytime soon. But when Dad informed me, it was like a slap in the face. The day after I graduated, I became engaged. I don't recall seeing or meeting anyone. Then he exclaimed, "My future husband lives on the west side of the country. That implies I'll be moving and experiencing life on a different level." I screamed at him, hoping it would bring me some relief. "Are you listening to yourself, Dad?" He raged at me and informed me that if I didn't obey the rules, he would disown me. I was terrified. I consented since I didn't want to lose them. We got married in an instant. They held the wedding via Skype. Both families agreed to keep it short, quick, and cheap, which I didn't understand considering his family was wealthy. But in any case, this is no longer important. His family was present in the room. Mine too. We virtually said yes, and we married with the blessing of our authorities. I had to travel the following week to meet him in person, and as you can imagine, it was the worst idea ever. This man was the most heinous person I'd ever met. I assumed he liked me because I was attractive, thin, blonde, and all. But he didn't seem to mind. He mistreated me emotionally and physically abused me. "It's all your fault," he insisted. "I wish you weren't here." He made fun of me whenever I tried to talk to him. He accused me of being a gold digger who married him solely for the money. When I informed him that I was coerced into this marriage, his anger escalated and he accused me of being a liar and a thief. I was unable to stay any longer. I requested a divorce, but he was not ready. Apparently, he needed this marriage to succeed more than I did because his inheritance was at stake. His father was affluent, and his father's first condition for giving him the money was that he marry someone from the sect and have children. I was the fortunate one, but after what I'd gone through with him, I wasn't about to fall pregnant anytime soon. I made the decision to flee the house. I couldn't do it during the day since he had cameras all over the place and would notice if I wasn't there. So I packed my belongings at night. Everything was prepared in a bag under the stairs. I had planned a fire. I placed some oil in a saucepan on the stove and turned it on. The oil quickly caught fire and moved to the kitchen cabinets. I woke him up and pretended I didn't know anything about it. When he smelled smoke, he panicked and dashed to the fire station, trying to save the house. That was my opportunity. I grabbed the bag and dashed away, leaving the mess behind. That night, I reserved a hotel room to consider my options. I couldn't beg my parents to let me live with them again, since they'd undoubtedly force me to return to them. Worse, they'd marry me off to someone else. I began to panic. It's true that I grabbed some cash from his wallet, but it won't be enough. What should I do now? Will I have to live on the streets? Fortunately, the next day I noticed an ad seeking volunteers to assist refugees fleeing war to reside in Greece. In exchange for the volunteers' assistance, they would provide food and a place to sleep. I'd applied right away. Leaving the country would give me some time to think about what to do next, and it would make it more difficult for David or my family to find me. And so I did. The refugees' living conditions were deplorable. They didn't have enough food or clothing. They were mostly chilly, and helping them made me pleased. We had to work hard to provide them with assistance and raise funds. We felt exhausted most of the time, but that was fantastic because it made me forget about what I'd gone through for a while. The team I was a part of was fantastic. They were all friendly, and assisting others made us feel good and brought us closer together. And it was there that I met Joseph. He was unrivaled. He waited for me every day to go divide the food among the migrants. He was always listening to me, looking at me differently, and making sure I had whatever I needed the moment I asked for it. He made an impression on me. He was genuine, which drew me to him. We soon began flirting with each other and fell in love. Everyone on the team recognized that we were having an affair, so they dubbed us lovebirds. We used to make fun of it. Joseph proposed to me just as the volunteering period was coming to an end. I couldn't be more pleased. I am marrying the man of my dreams. We married in Greece and then returned to our own country. While I worked in an office, Joseph was employed by a corporation. Everything was going swimmingly until I became pregnant. We had our first child, a son. Owen was his name. Owen was the light of our lives. We were a contented family. Until life took a different turn. When David reappeared in my life, I observed Owen as we were shopping at the mall. I attempted to hide, but it was futile. David charged at me, shouting in my face, "I have found you, you ugly woman. You ruined my life." But when he saw Owen, he became even more enraged. He accused me of fleeing to protect his son from him. I emphasized that Owen is not his son, and he never will be, since I despise the thought of being close to him. He reacted by yelling at me, calling me a liar who deserved to be burned in hell and threatening to harm my family. When the security guards heard him cry, they came over and escorted him out of the mall. Because I was afraid, I took Owen and headed home. When I told Joseph what had happened, he assured me that David couldn't harm us. But he was mistaken. I went to pick up Owen from kindergarten a week later. I waited outside for him as usual, but he never showed up. When I asked the teachers, they claimed he was outside waiting. I checked wherever I thought he might be, but he was nowhere to be found. So I went to the cops. I had a feeling David had kidnapped him. I told the cops everything, including how David threatened me. They conducted an investigation and arrested David. However, to everyone's amazement, David had not abducted Owen. David was sleeping in his apartment when the police arrived. He was at his house in the morning, according to the cameras. And then he went back to work. He told the cops that he merely threatened me to terrify me, but that he didn't want to take Owen because he knew he wasn't his. The police put him under surveillance for several days before concluding that he did not commit the crime. And we continued to look for Owen. It took several days until I received a disturbing letter in the mail. They didn't even compose it themselves. They could cut and glued newspaper letters together. "If you want to see your son, come here tonight at 1 a.m. alone. Owen will be at risk if you bring anyone with you." When I read that, I almost passed out, but I pretended to be fine in front of Joseph. I didn't want to evoke any emotions in him. I didn't want him to know because the letter expressly stated that I had to come alone. I crept out of the house at 1 a.m. that night and went to the location they had told me about. Everything was in the dark. I entered a deserted structure. I went in because I noticed a noise coming from a specific room. Suddenly, there were lights everywhere. I had to close my eyes briefly before slowly opening them, and what I saw was incredible. On the bed, Joseph, David, and Owen were sleeping. I turned to face Joseph. I was perplexed. What on earth is going on here? David asked sickly, "You thought you could run away." Then he handed Joseph a suitcase and said, "That's the $20 million we agreed on. Return to your homeland." I couldn't say anything. I turned to face Joseph, feeling deceived, hurt, and on the edge of going wild. How could you possibly sell your own child? I yelled back, "What kind of person are you?" Joseph responded hastily, "I'm confident he'll live a happy life. David is wealthy enough to provide for both of you. Back at home, I had 20 mouths to feed. Believe me, you will succeed." He then took the suitcase and walked away. David admitted that he had orchestrated the whole thing, leaving me stuck with him. He knew he had to get me back when he saw me and Owen at the mall, so he approached Joseph and persuaded him to leave us in exchange for money. I became ill and repulsed upon hearing him speak, so I began to yell, "You sick man, you're insane. I'm going to make your life a living hell." David got close and tried to place his hands on my mouth to get me to stop talking. He didn't want Owen to wake up or cause a commotion, but I didn't mind. I yelled at the top of my voice, "Get off of me. Get out." 6 police officers burst into the room, announcing, "You are under arrest." One of them threatened David with a gun if he didn't raise his hands and stand still. He believed he could imprison me again and do whatever he pleased. He didn't realize I wasn't the same weak person I used to be. I had gone to the police station earlier that day with the letter and told them everything. They said they would be sheltering near the building. They handed me a wire shaped like a button. Our signal was screaming. We were saved by screams. Authorities apprehended Joseph as he exited the building, and he will be spending time in jail. Never give someone power over you.